Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this September 9th, 2015 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Now, on my Slave Labor Day show I did the other day, I brought up the subject of the IRS and how the income tax laws are voluntary. And the reason being is that the Supreme Court could never find a way to find it constitutional. So they basically use a public relations campaign and a kind of a third-party IRS mafia collection agency to threaten you when, in fact, they want to keep from you the truth about the law. Now, I made an error by mistaking direct tax and indirect tax, and I apologize for that. I've forgotten a lot of what I learned in law school over the years, either purposely or through time. But I thought what I'd do, instead of going through another show, is go back to my 2006 show that I did on one of the shows I did on this subject when I was on Genesis. That's GCN. The station that Alex Jones is on, and I interviewed an attorney who had been disbarred named Robert Clarkson. He was also a Vietnam veteran and a patriot, but he'd seen the truth about his country and decided to tell you that. And he specialized in the tax code as well as helping people understand the voluntary income tax. Now, I thought I'd play that for you. And I'm going to have to play it in its entirety because I can't cut out the commercials and some of my comments at the beginning of the show. But they're pretty good. They're about 9/11. So why don't we listen to Robert Clarkson. Robert has since passed away since I did this show in 2006. And in his memory, why don't we listen? And I'll tell you what. He had... I considered to be the best information on this subject. So here is Robert Clarkson talking about the voluntary income tax.
With a great guest. We tried to get Robert Clarkson on last week, and what happened, he was traveling doing speeches and his cell phone ran out, so we never did get a good hour interview with him. So I had Robert back talking about the voluntary income tax. And this is a huge story, a story that's been suppressed by the mainstream media, by most everyone, really. And a lot of the patriot movements haven't really have got it wrong. They're hassling with them instead of getting to the point of just not doing anything and not paying because it is voluntary and the Constitution backs it up. Dr. Clarkson will talk about this shortly. I just wanted to mention a few things before. I had to laugh. I was listening to the USA News before the show started on GCN, and Tim Romer got on there and started to give us a little bit of, I'll just say BS about 9/11 and terrorism and all that. And we know that terrorism doesn't exist. Basically it does, but they've orchestrated it. Now, let me just talk about Tim Romer. Last year when I went to the 9/11, it was the ceremonies every year on 9/11, I did try to talk to Tim Romer about some very important evidence that has been withheld, and he ran out of the hotel like a scared rabbit. Didn't want to answer questions, and in fact had his media people block me before I could get to the elevator to talk to him. He just ran away, didn't want to talk about the truth about 9/11, about the evidence that has been withheld. And back then when I was doing a lot of stories, compiling a lot of evidence from all the people that have been doing this, I've made the statement that there's so much evidence now beyond a reasonable doubt to go forward to show that 9/11 didn't occur as they're telling us. And what's happening, though, is it's a constant debate. It's a constant debate. And I basically backed off because I just felt at that time many people had been spinning their wheels when there's enough evidence, and we know we're not going to get justice unless we clean up the corrupt judiciary, get to their money and clean up their offshore banking, and then have some power to work against these people, because they'll do exactly what they did with JFK to 9/11. And all you people out there that know about all the evidence in 9/11, it's there, we talk about it, but where's the justice? And I think Dr. Clarkson will make a comment about that also. Second, the last thing I wanted to mention, the Leo Wanta story. $4.5 trillion. I just talked to the parties involved, and they're moving forward to get the money, and we will report on that very, very real story, a story of American cover-up for years and years, going back to Reagan, and what a story it is. I've got some FedDocs, Federal Court Appeals cases by Leo on my website at www.arcticbeacon.com. And there's a whole bunch of evidence, letters to Paulson, the Secretary of Treasury, about this settlement of $4.5 trillion to come to America, letters to the President, and all the background to this story is just so amazing. It is really getting at the New World Order and their finances and their offshore scamming of America. And I'll tell you what, we need every American to get behind this story, this very real story, and you can get it here on GCN exclusively, as well as my other show on another network. Well, anyway, let me get to Dr. Clarkson. We got an hour to spend. Dr. Clarkson has been working for years to enlighten American people about their rights, about really what to do, about taking money away from the New World Order, using the rights, and not allowing us to drift into a totalitarian system. Why we simply talk about generalities. This is a specific story. Dr. Clarkson, tell us about the voluntary income tax.
Yes, Greg, the income tax has been voluntary on wages and salaries since 1946. At the end of World War II, plus 6 months, the Victory Tax Act expired. The Victory Tax Act put the income tax on wages and salaries, not the 16th Amendment. The 16th Amendment clearly provided, no question about this, there's no dispute. The 16th Amendment only taxed corporations, stocks and bonds, and things that you did without labor, without working. The labor tax or the wage tax came in 2 months after Pearl Harbor with the Victory Tax Act, which expired automatically at the end of World War II plus 6 months. So in early 1946, the income tax expired on wages and salaries, and the IRS got around this with failure to have a law and failure to have constitutional enactments to authorize their tax. The IRS got around the law by making the income tax voluntary, and they made the filing and paying of income taxes voluntary for wage earners and people who make wages and salaries. So those people who wish to pay the tax, of course, they can file and pay pay some more and then pay a little bit more. But President Bush went around this country and made 80 speeches. The news media, which hates him, pointed out he made 80 speeches saying Social Security is bankrupt, it's insolvent, it won't pay off. And the liberal news media said nobody listened to him. Well, this is true. Most people didn't, but some did. The main thing, Greg, is why did our president say it 80 times in public, Social Security is bankrupt? Because the fact is it's bankrupt. Yet you've got all these sheeple who trust the politician paying in. What we're trying to tell people is bankrupt, which they already know, but they don't have to pay in involuntarily. They can pay in voluntarily. If you wish to donate money to Social Security, do so. That's an unworthy contribution if there ever was one. It would be so much better donating to a church or some worthwhile charity. But people are paying 15% of what they make every time they make $100, 8%, Social Security, $15. They're not going to get it back. It's bankrupt. It's just a grab bag for the politicians that they use to buy votes and finance these unpopular wars.
Yeah, and it just goes on and on and on. And tell us where your website is so people can go and start looking at it. And
we have an immense amount of information about the voluntariness of the income tax, the court cases, the IRS publications, and all this information on the income tax being voluntary. It's in the beginner section of my website. My website is patriotnetwork.info. That's www.patriotnetwork.info. Go on the upper left and you'll see 4 beginners, 1 and 2. People can click on there. There's the information they can use to quit paying taxes. There's the information they can use to respect their families. Greg, it says in the Bible that we have a duty from the Lord God Almighty to support our families and our loved ones. Where in the Bible does it say we're supposed to give foreign aid to some petty dictator on the other side of the world? Well, you know, Greg, Congress just voted $1 trillion a couple of years ago. They voted $1 trillion to pay these millionaire farmers not to work. Why are they paying these farmers not to work? If Congress wanted to do something right, they'd pay lawyers not to go to work. Then they wouldn't be out suing everybody.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And I'll tell you what. I mentioned at the top of the show that I thought a lot of these patriot movements regarding income tax have been taking a wrong turn in getting embroiled with the IRS and basically getting defeated. Where your method is pretty sound and pretty simple. Just in the last minute before our break, comment on that.
Well, everybody that fights the IRS is doing a good thing, and I commend them. But there are a lot easier ways to do it. The easy way is just walk away from it. Just do nothing. There's no requirement to file, don't file. There's no requirement to pay, don't pay. If necessary, you can write the IRS and ask them to send you the copy of the law that requires you to file and pay. You can phone the IRS up and ask them if it's voluntary, or you can just walk away from the whole thing. Greg, the main thing to remember is we are American citizens. We have rights under the law. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights protects us. Greg, who does the Bill of Rights protect us from? The grocery store, your next-door neighbor? The Bill of Rights protects us from the government.
And it's growing larger and larger as we speak. I mean, I see our rights getting whittled away to a point where, I really agree with you when you say, people deserve what they get. And I don't have any sympathy for a person who wants to pay to this illegal government, but people should know. We're going to get back and talk why. It's a voluntary tax, and you don't have to pay.
Right, so on our website, we've got a section, go down the left, that says earnest letter writing. And then we've got subsections under that, and I think the first thing that you see is letters and notices from the IRS. And the letters they send you, most of them, but not all, have a letter number, a notice number. So you go on that section of the website, it's got the letters and notices, the type letter it is, the heading, and instructions. If it comes from the service center, and all it does is just ask a few stupid questions, ignore it. And that's it for most people. That's what they need, that's over with, they don't hear from them again. But occasionally people get what's called a 30-day letter. Particularly the state people send these out, state DOR. That's a notice of proposed assessment. We call this a sneaky lawyer trick. Greg, the lawyers and the real estate companies, insurance companies, and government agencies use a legal technique. The Latin term is the doctrine of sub silentia. Silence condones consent. Failure to deny is, in fact, an admission. Tacit agreement. The law says they can file for you. There's no law saying you have to file. But if they file for you, they have to send it to you. And if you deny it, it kills it. It's finished. It's over with. But people don't know what their procedural rights are, and sometimes they let that sneak by. Now,
so basically what happens... Yeah, basically what happens, they ignore that letter. The law allows the IRS to file the taxes for them, and they think they're screwed. And basically their silence was tacit admission by the law of their guilt, correct?
That's right. So they end up, even though they didn't volunteer, they exercise their rights, or they file a protest return, and now they fill out a tax slave for them. Once again, all they have to do is deny it necessarily. But people don't know that. It's kind of sneaky in the IRS. Oh, incidentally, when they send you this, the Constitution Due Process of Law Clause requires them to give you notice and also inform you in the notice what you can do. If you read that notice of proposed assessment, it says, if you deny this guilt, it's over with, it's finite. Now, we took them to court on proposed assessment federally and beat them years ago. So you don't see that much anymore, and it's worded in such a way that you can't figure out what it says. Now, most of the state Department of Revenue, DOR, still use a notice of proposed assessment. So once again, that works there. All right. And so the IRS sends out 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 nothing letters. Ignore them. They send out from the service center 30-day letter. Occasionally people get letters from their local IRS agent, and then, of course, you respond to that.
Listen, we're going to have to take a 4-minute break. I want to come back and tell people who you are, how long you've been fighting this, and we'll be back in 4 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
Okay, I'm going to try to get back with Clarkson again now. He was discussing what they do to you, what can happen when you get they can notice you on the voluntary tax. But the real key is, Robert has researched it, and the IRS will admit it. The income tax is voluntary, and like he said, they'll try some sneaky little lawyer tricks to embroil you in the system. The best thing to do, if you don't want to pay the tax, watch out for those letters that come. He talked about the one that's important, and if they don't send you anything, I wouldn't worry about it. We're going to move ahead 4 minutes here to catch Robert Clarkson again.
That they tell us is mandatory, the IRS income tax, which is really voluntary, is, a symptom of many, many stories in this country. This is how they operate. And many people, for example, I'm working on this story called the Leo Wanta story. I've been doing it for a couple of years. And I get a lot of people who say, well, I haven't seen it in the mainstream media, and I haven't heard any government people talking about it. So it must not be true. And Robert, it's so upsetting because we've been many people have been so brainwashed. Their rights are just being whittled away, and you know what? This story is key. I mean, your story is key because it shows how much power we really have if we really start exercising our rights and speaking up as Americans and not become slaves to this New World Order. Give me your comments.
We're the majority of the people. The Constitution is overwhelming on our side. The Lord God Almighty, the truth is on our side. What they have on their side is conspirators who just sneaky as they can be, and people who are inherently dishonest like Bill Clinton, and people who are just driven and dedicated like Hillary. These people share a philosophy called statism. And statism is a political philosophy that government knows best. And the people in Manhattan and New York City know better for us than we know for ourselves. And the people in Washington could and should tell us what to do, tell us how to manage our affairs, and make sure we do as they're told. There's a philosophy of statism where government knows best. The statists also believe there's a certain elite people, the Rockefellers and the Kennedys, who are given the authority to tell other people what to do. These elitists think they know better than us, that they're better people than we are, that they should be in control and tell us how to manage our affairs. And the reason they get to be this elite crowd where they have the power to make other people's person's decisions for them, the reason they're in this status is because their grandparents, great-grandparents made a lot of money in that terrible, terrible free enterprise system. But these statists, they have plans. They have plans to a dictatorship for this country where they'll force us to do this and force us to do that. These people believe in force. After all, listen to them every day. It's for the children. It's for the little children that they should do all these terrible things to us.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And just tell me a little bit about your history, where you come from, and also weave in a little bit about how you've seen America change from the time you were a Vietnam vet to the time you went to law school, and what's happening now. Just give us an overview, and I know you're not happy about this quick change in the last 20 or 30 years. Go ahead, Robert.
I was brought up in the deep South by my loving parents who worked hard to provide for themselves and their children, who believed in the Constitution, our way of life. And it did exist at that time. There was change came later. I finished Clemson in 1979 in economics, and our country was in the throes of change. And then I served in Vietnam as an Army First Lieutenant platoon leader. I had a platoon of soldiers with the 22nd Infantry Regiment. I was the SWAT lot and the Iron Triangle, and we went through the jungles trying to kill commies, because that's what they told us to do. Of course, the guns that were pointed at us were paid for by my daddy's tax dollars. North Vietnam had no factories, manufactured no ammunition and no guns. Every bit of ammunition, guns, gunpowder, and everything they used to kill Americans came from the other countries. The other communist countries. Every single communist country was getting foreign aid from this country, directly or indirectly. Every single bullet that was used to shoot at me, endangered me, and stuck in my head was paid for my friends and relatives' tax dollars. Our government, as usual, was financing both sides of the war and put in the firing line the people who trusted the politicians and the people that loved our country and thought we were a good country sent their children into the war. The well-to-do and the New World Order types, they knew better than that. They weren't going to let their sons be in danger. It was a rich man's war and a poor man's fight. So I came home, and I spent time in the hospital and had a chance to reflect, and I began to see that I'd been used by the government. They had no intention to win. They were just sending us over there to spread some American blood on another worthless corner of the earth.
Okay, we're going to take a break right now and come back with Robert Clarkson. Robert is no longer with us. I hope you heed some of his words. This show was done in 2006, quite prophetic. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal, and I want you to remember, you can go back and find things on the involuntary tax. I used to tell people, after I spent time with Robert, he's an attorney, I spent time in law school, and understood that he was probably the one that gave you the straight and narrow on the voluntary income tax. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour on the Investigative Journal, and I've been skipping around on my show that was on Genesis, GCN Network, Genesis Broadcasting Network, back in 2006, where I interviewed Robert Clarkson, who I consider to be the authority on the voluntary income tax. Now, boy, have we gone downhill since 2006. Even my attitude has changed. I've seen over the years, we're looking back almost 10 years, and boy, I was very, very gung-ho towards thinking we can still change things. But we were right on track by showing you that our rights have been taken away slowly but surely. And people, when Robert said things like, the Constitution is for us, the Bill of Rights is for us, and then explained who these elite are, and then talked about the Vietnam War, and we're going to pick that up in a minute, but I want to go back to that little segment he did earlier that we kind of missed. I want to make sure, because I was skipping around, that you understand what he says about the voluntary tax. Then research it yourself. And one thing interesting, when I was researching this story myself, I was out of law school, he's absolutely right. There is no constitutional or Supreme Court justification. They never could justify this income tax as constitutional. And so what they decided to do, instead of, throwing in the hat and saying, okay, your work and your labor is yours and the money you make is yours, they decided to make it voluntary and then create this kind of mafia third-party IRS group to be tax collectors or thugs, and then have a great propaganda campaign on TV. Two things in life that are most important, they only happen, are death and taxes. What a bunch of garbage. Let's listen to Clarkson here explain this little segment I missed in the first half hour of this show regarding the voluntary income tax.
Clarkson back. Robert, you're with us. How are you?
Yes, I'm looking forward to telling more people the truth about the income tax. Thank you, Greg, so much for having this show and bringing the real news to so many people who all have been exposed to is the lies by the controlled media.
Yeah, tell us how they've treated you over the years. I think people would like to know that because, you wake up in this country and you start working and everybody believes that you must pay this or there are severe consequences. That's not the case. Go ahead.
According to the Internal Revenue Service, the people that don't file are being left alone. Now, what they are doing is harassing the people that file and don't pay. Greg, the statistics are awesome. On April 15th each year, more than half, that's more than 50% of the people that file tax returns don't send the money in or don't send a portion of it in. So they immediately create immense problems for themselves. The non-filers, there's no paperwork yet. What can the government do? They get left alone. The people that file and don't pay, and the numbers are staggering, are being harassed by the IRS because they sent the tax return in with their signature. They volunteered to pay what they didn't know, and now they're on the hook, and there's no challenge to it. They've confessed. The 1040 form is a self-confession form. The lawyers call it confession of judgment. Greg, let me ask you this. When the bank robber robs the bank, on his way out of town, does he stop by the sheriff's office and fill out the 1040 bank robbery form? Of course not. Why not? Because the bank robber has a right to remain silent. He does not have to talk. Now, the law-abiding, honest American citizens have the same right. Of course they do. They don't have to talk. They can be quiet.
Yeah, and on your website, and this is going years and years and years of looking at this issue, show people what letters to respond to, what letters not to respond to, and that's quite important. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, we call this earnest letter writing, and it's an approach we developed years ago. The IRS leaves most people just flat alone. The non-filers have almost always been left alone, so they just do nothing. But people who file and don't pay, and the numbers are stagnant, the people who voluntarily sent in the 1040 and paid the tax they didn't owe and voluntarily waived their rights, and people who file protest returns have problems. So we've developed a program to help those being beset and being harassed by an evil, wicked, despotic agency. Greg, the IRS can be beat. They can be beat by you following a few simple steps. But you have to know what your rights are, and when you deal with the IRS, the type rights that you want to use are those guaranteed by the Due Process Clause of the Constitution. Due process is guaranteed in the Constitution twice. It's the only constitutional right mentioned twice. But under the Constitution, you have a right to due process of law. This is called procedure, court procedure, common law. You can make them obey the rules. What you want to do is make them obey the rules, and boy, they squeal and holler because they don't want to do that. They don't want to obey the law, and Lord's sake, they don't want to obey these stupid rules.
Right. So anyway, what are the letters, though, that come? They may, let's say you don't file. The person doesn't file this year, and they start getting letters from the IRS. Which ones do you pull out and throw away? Well, which ones do you respond to?
Half the people receive nothing. But those who do receive something, they generally receive two letters, one of them asking for your return, one of them asking for your address. You ignore those, throw those in the trash. Sometimes there's three of them, sometimes four of them. They come from the computer center or throw them in the trash. On our website, we've got a section, go down the left, that says earnest letter writing. And then we've got subsections under there, and I think the first thing that you see is letters and notices from the IRS. And the letters they send you, most of them, but not all, have a letter number, a notice number. So you go on that section of the website, it's got the letters and notices, and the type what it is, the heading, and instructions. If it comes from the Service Center, and all it does is just ask a few stupid questions, ignore it. And that's it for most people. That's what they need. That's over with. I don't hear from them again. But occasionally people get what's called a 30-day letter. Particularly the state people send these out, state DOR. That's a notice of proposed assessment. We call this a sneaky lawyer trick. Greg, the lawyers and the real estate companies, insurance companies, and government agencies use a legal technique. The Latin term is the doctrine of sub silentia. Silence condones consent. Failure to deny.
Okay, we went over this before in the first half hour, and I picked it up again just to repeat the importance of it. His website's still around, even though Robert isn't with us, and it's a very informative one. But the key here is that the IRS knows the tax is voluntary, and so you have that choice every year to make. If you want to pay it, go right ahead. If you don't, you have that right. And he's talking about only the letter that there's letters they send you don't have to respond to, and the thing is over with if you don't file. If you're one of the few that get a letter, most people never even get, they just leave you alone. And the reason the IRS leaves you alone, and I'm paraphrasing from other interviews I had with Clarkson, is because they do a study every year to see how many people don't file. And they keep those numbers at a certain amount. They don't want them to go over a certain amount. If they stay in that certain amount, and there's millions, they're fine. They're still making good money. But the reason, and as I interviewed Clarkson over the years before he passed away, they had come down on him heavily on this issue. And we're in the process, they sued him over this non-filing issue, even though he was right, and basically told me that in the back room the IRS told him, Robert, tell your friends about it, but if you make a public issue about this, we're going to find something on you, and we're going to bring you down. Because they don't want people to know. The more people that know, the less people are going to pay, and they ain't going to make the illegal money that they do. It's an illegal way of collecting money. That simple. That's why that Labor Day we talked about the other day is a slave Labor Day. Now, because the corporations don't pay taxes, folks, they're set up as tax collectors. That's why the government writes in the IRS rules to give them a break, because they're collecting for them. They're playing the illegal tax game themselves, and they're given a break for it. Don't you get it? Now, anyway, let's move forward here to where Robert left off, and he was talking about his service in the Vietnam War and what he learned about these illegal wars, and he left off right here, so I'm going to pick that up right now, where Clarkson left off.
I began to see that I'd been used by the government. They had no intention to win. They were just sending us over there to spread some American blood on another wealthiest quarter of the earth. And so I came home with an idea that I needed to fight the federal government. I've been doing it ever since. But I represented before the IRS thousands and thousands of people. I've had my fingers in more tax court cases than anybody else. I've helped milk hundreds of thousands of people at audits and shown them how to fend off the mechanisms of evil, wicked IRS. The IRS can be beat. People just need to learn a few simple principles. It can be done, and people are doing it every day. The IRS just simply doesn't have the manpower to fight those and fight back. The IRS is bullies. They go after the weak. If they think that you're going to fight back and know how to cause some trouble, they drop you like a hot potato and go rob and harass the weak people that don't know what their rights are.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? They use the IRS money, of course, like you said, this voluntary tax to fund these illegal wars, and that's going on as we speak.
You look in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, you see the bulldozers made in this America, given to the Israeli army by tax dollars, tearing down these buildings. Well, the next day they use our tax dollars to rebuild the building. Then a month later, the Israeli bulldozers bulldoze that same building. Then they use our tax dollars to rebuild it. But every time you look on a newspaper, you see Israeli army bulldozers tearing down buildings, tearing up factories, tearing down utilities. All that was paid for by our tax dollars, and one side or the other is going to rebuild it with our tax dollars again.
Yeah, this it's just a story that goes on and on and on. You put this story together. If we can enlighten people, if you can enlighten people to just not pay the voluntary tax and leave it up to them. I mean, if people want to do it, that's fine. Boy, I'll tell you what, it begins to, like one caller in one of our other shows brought up a point that once the politicians realize this, once there's a huge, massive movement, they're going to do something. What do you think they would do?
No, it's not a huge, massive movement. Okay. One of the greatest authorities on revolutions and political change was a man from Boston named Samuel Adams. And he's told, everybody said he was a great political leader and agitator, and he said, no, the American Revolution only had 5% of the population involved, 5%. Of course, he didn't add, but everybody knew that 2.5% or maybe 3% was on the other side. In South Carolina, with a bloody civil war, and lots of people hung, the Tories and the British hung a bunch of my ancestors. But the Tories were doing the fight, and the British Army sent money and generals over here, and the Americans furnished the soldiers in the British Army. Both sides. But, generally speaking, 3% is critical mass. If we can get 3% of the people, and we're close in that, we will win, and outside will throw out these dirty rascals. That's the constitutional government. For the people in power, Greg, the people in power obey the law.
Yeah, and you know something, I asked a question one time to someone who we were talking about the New World Order and the Constitution, and I made this statement that they're ignoring it. You know what he tells me? He said, these people don't even consider it. They don't even think it exists in their world. And what a statement. But anyway, we'll be back in 4 minutes for our final segment with Dr. Robert Clarkson.
Okay, we're going to pick up with Clarkson here. And the last segment, I'm going back in time to 2006 when I was on Genesis Communication Network. That's the Alex Jones Network, by the way. And I think my show was on right after his. And you should know that the reason that it's not on anymore there is because of my concentration on the Vatican-led New World Order, which at the time, Alex Jones called me crazy and said that the Vatican had no power. And now he's changing his tune because he's getting his marching orders, and you will hear him speaking up against Pope Francis, but he's doing that old Illuminati trick. And that is to get an insider in there who works with them to talk against, to lead the way. And that's what he's going to be doing. And you'll notice very clearly what he says about the Pope. He says this Pope is evil and is infiltrating the good church. It's similar to that goofy movie Angels and Demons that Ron Howard made when they said, when they shot it in Rome and they said the Illuminati was trying to destroy the Vatican. Well, they did fail to mention that the Vatican is the Illuminati. The organization has been corrupt for God knows how long, ever since the beginning. And we're doing a show yesterday. I did one on the history of the papacy with Richard Bennett. We'll pick that up again Friday. And then next week I got some stories on Tony Alamo, a couple new people from his ministry, as well as telling you what I'm planning to do to get that story out to people, because I think it's key. I'm going to contact over 200 or 300 radio stations with a prepared press release as well as audio, video, and want this story covered. See if I can get it on the mainstream. And it'll be interesting the way I'm planning to do it. So you stay tuned, and I'll talk more about that in the weeks to come. But here we go. I got to push ahead 4 minutes here. Let's see if I can catch the music again.
Yes, voluntary. Remember that word. We got about 10 minutes, Doctor. I wanted to get into one thing with you, and that is the specifics about, I know you're writing a new book on tell people about your website before we run out of time, and also about this, the new book I think you're coming out with. It's going to help people.
Yes, my website is patriotnetwork.info. It's a huge website, immense amount of information there, mainly dealing with taxes and evilness of the IRS. That's www.patriotnetwork.info. And we've got a section of that called Earnest Letter Writing, which is the name of a book that I published about 20 years ago, and I'm republishing it. It's supposed to come out tomorrow in a CD. And it's going to be instructions on how to write letters to bureaucrats, how to protect the record, how to cover yourself, how to respond to the letters without giving out any information. And earnest letter writing is a letter writing technique. Generally it's taught by lawyers, and it's definitely used by government agencies in immense amount. It's where they can not say anything definite and leave the doors open for later qualifications of just plain lying. And they can accomplish the purpose of getting a response on record so they can toss the ball back in your court.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about, there's a lot of small business owners out there. People have trouble, getting into business now because of the high taxes, and really, have been, it's a segment of our society that's dwindling. Tell us a little bit about how you can help people that want to get into small businesses.
It's very easy to do. What they have to do is have respect for themselves and their families. They quit paying all these taxes. If you want to start a business up, you start it up generally as a sole proprietorship, sometimes called a DBA, doing business as, or in some states a TA, trading as. But legally it's a sole proprietorship. You just start it up, come up with a name. Now, try not to pick a name for your business the same as somebody else's name. That's against the law. You don't want to be stealing anyway. And some states have a fictitious name statute that says you cannot use the business name that somebody else is using, which is pretty good law. Right. And then some states will say you have to register. If you set up a company, say Robert Clarkson Company, you don't need to register that. But if I set up a company called Patriot Network, then I have to register that fictitious name. Used to be at the county courthouses, but now I think the states have this in the Secretary of State's office. That's just common sense. Otherwise, there's no requirement to open up a business or have a business, and there's no requirement to file tax returns, fill out these tax returns, or do any of those things. However, if you're going to open a bank account, and most businessmen feel they need to, I hadn't had a bank account. I get along fine. I hadn't had a bank account in 30 years. It works well. But if people open bank accounts, find that the banksters in league with the New World Order will require numbers. And what they want is a TIN number, taxpayer identification number, which is either the SSN, your Social Security number, or the EIN, the employer's identification number, the IRS issues for you to pay the other people's taxes. If you rob your worker's paycheck and send that to the IRS, you have to give the IRS their name and their slave number. Remember, all your properties have to have numbers. If you own something, put a number on it. If your slave masters own you, they want to number you. And then when you send in the slaves withholding, and then you also send in the name of your company and your number. Remember, government agencies have to have numbers. And so you get the number to do that. That's the EIN number from the IRS. The bank wants that one or the SSN. Some people, particularly illegal immigrants, are allowed to use a TA number, tax number, which is easy. Illegal immigrants have so many privileges that we don't have. They get SBA loans at no interest. All these immigrants owning all these hotels, well, they get free money from the foreign aid and all these government agencies, which if you borrow money, you got to pay pretty big interest to the banks. So the people who violate the law have so many more advantages in our system that they get to use the TA, which is kind of not traceable, but a lot of people are using those. But you can set up a business, come up with a name of your business and some business activity, and that's all you have to do. And if you want a bank account, then you get the numbers.
Now, basically what you're saying is small businessmen can set up their employees on an independent contractor basis. and
yes,
bypass
if you have
all
people working for you, you can have them independent contractor or a number of type things, and we have a book on that. An independent contractor saves you so much money. See, if you have somebody working for you, you have to match that Social Security thievery, which is never going to pay off. It's what a waste. But they pay in Social Security and Medicaid 7.5% plus a little bit, so you match it with 7.5 plus a little bit. And then also, as a businessman, you have to pay 2% of payroll, the unemployment rip-off, which is subsidized vacation for construction workers and people that know how to milk the system.
Okay, that about, I have a couple more minutes of Robert on that show, and he kind of goes over some things when he's talking about independent contractors and how the corporations are set up as basically tax thugs and tax collectors, and that's why they get their benefits and don't have to pay. Now, I'll tell you, looking back almost 10 years, we have, as a country, really gone downhill. There aren't many people who even have the energy anymore to fight the system. It's where it's getting to. But let's see if we could revive that energy. Use it for good. And remember, you have rights under the Constitution, which still remains, and you have a Bill of Rights. Don't let them take it away, and don't be listening to these goofy politicians that are running for office. None of them are going to help you. Back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased. It has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.